Hey, good evening, everybody. Waiting for our guest, Dax Simonelli, to. I sent him a link about 10 minutes ago. I think he just may be watching, but Dax, if you're watching right now, I sent a link to your Goldentyre Gmail. Just click on the link and it's easy peasy lemon squeezy. There he is. There you are. I'm going to bring you in just about 5 minutes, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. All right, let's let the room populate here a little bit. I have up all of the GPS information and the map for the penultimate version of the Tour of Idaho Day 1. I did that the last few days. I had an incorrect file loaded up that had some of the waypoints for the solo route labeled incorrectly. Several of you pointed that out. And I think I've got all that fixed. As always, look over it. If you see something that needs fixing, just post it up in the comments section, or you can PM me if you want to. Either way works. We are going to, but first tonight we have a guest. I want to talk a little bit about tires. Those of you who know me very well know that I've always been a huge fan of Goldentyre. The first Goldentyres I ever got were at King of the Motos a few years ago. And I was not a participant, but I used to go down there and help Jimmy put on the event. And one of the things he did was he said, you got to try these tires out. They're fabulous. And he gave me a pair, and that's been the only thing that's been on any of my dirt bikes ever since. I think they're fantastic. I've recommended them for the Tour of Idaho for years. I think that the 216 AA Fatty and the 333, the standard 333 for the rear, that's the rig for the Tour of Idaho. Most of you all will have to. I've gotten one all the way through before, but it was a Bald Eagle brand radial at the end. And, of course, we've arranged for you to be able to swap out tires and salmon. So the setup that we recommend is the 216 AA Fatty for your front, the 333 for the rear, just the standard 333. We recommend ultra heavy-duty tubes, a little bit of slime in them, because you're not going to be able to get bib boost inserts. You're not going to be able to get tubeless, anything like that. You know, if you develop trouble along the way, there could be some difficulties with that. But I'm going to let Dax, make the case tonight. He knows more about that than I do. He's up to date on the state of the technology, and who knows, he may change my mind. Maybe bib boosters have gotten to the point where that is the thing to do. Jimmy thinks that they're close, if not already there. The results have been mixed the past few years, but clearly that's a technology that's coming along if you like the way they feel. That's an element in all this, too. So, as you're aware, we recommend the Goldentyre setup, and we recommend that you run what you've got on your bike until you get to Pocatello, have a fresh set put on in Pocatello. We have at Pocatello Power Sports. Then you can make it all the way to Salmon, and Josh will hook you up there with another set. The past couple of years, though, there have been a lot of guys that have shown up with tubeless, and they've shown up with bib boost inserts and stuff. Josh runs a tire store. It's not a motorcycle shop. And there is some special expertise that's required to deal with a lot of that stuff. And Josh knows what he's doing. He's a really smart guy, but you're asking an awful lot when you ask him. He's more than happy to change your tires if it's simple and easy. But he's doing this as a favor, so you might want to think about that when you show up with something really exotic. I think he's happy to fix you up if it's easy peasy lemon squeezy, but you're really putting him in kind of a bind because he's not supposed to do any of that stuff. So think about that when you consider the position you're putting him in if you show up with something really exotic and say, hey, can you take care of this for me? So one of the reasons I reached out to Dax is I talked to him a few weeks ago through the email, and I hadn't talked to Dax in a long time. But all the Goldentyres that I have, and I've got a pile. I've probably got 20 out in the shop. I just threw on the last fresh set that I had, and this shame on me, but they're a few years old. But I used to buy them in lots. I loved them so much that I said, if this company goes away, I'm going to be really sad. So I'm going to have a big supply of these tires out there. So I had like 20 in my shop. I think I had 10 fronts and 20 rears, and I've been going through them. And I just spooned on a fresh set, and I put them on my 450X to go down riding in the desert. I did the Mojave Road on a set. I did them last year on a set of their 900 series, which I like a lot. They're bigger block. It's a completely DOT legal tire. They're great. And Dax told me, you're going to love these things, and I did. I've ridden a lot of single track in them, and I loved them too. But the 333 is just a different beast. It just works really good everywhere. It's the best do-everything tire I personally have ever ridden with. And I took it down the desert, just ran at about 9 PSI, and, man, I had fun hucking those sand washes for days. It was just an awesome experience. So I'm really sold on that tire, and until somebody comes along and shows me something that's better, that's it. I may be buried with a set of them. That's how much I like them. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring in our guest tonight. Let me make sure that he's on. Dax, welcome to PBR Monday. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, no worries. We don't ever plan this. I haven't talked to you in advance or anything like that. This is kind of just a free-flowing discussion. So tell us everything everybody needs to know about Goldentyre. And then, knowing the parameters of the tour a little bit, it's over 2,000 miles. It's 13 days. It's in the middle of nowhere, so it's kind of hard to get stuff worked on. Give us your recommendations, what you would do if it were you.
Yeah, thanks. So you hit the nail right on the head. Our 216 front, there's actually two sizes you could opt for. The 333 and the standard compound rear is definitely the go-to piece. We do offer another product, the 723 Rally Raid. It's designated by an R. It differs slightly from our old 723 product, but it's a tube-type tire built for 500 to 701 class bikes. That would be another option. And that option you could confidently stretch the entire thing. That it wouldn't be outside the range of that tire. The 216 333 combo is really somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 to 1,000 mile rear, maybe 12 to 1,500 front on average is what people expect on normal use, mixed use like what we've talked about. So you really have two options, and in the 216 and the 333 we offer two different sizes. So I think you pretty much got it covered. The 723R is back in stock finally after about a year hiatus. There was talk overseas a little bit about changing the size of the front, so we held off on importing those. But but they're back in stock, and that'd be a really solid second option if someone wanted something that was more based around Rally Raid. So you get more range, more better wear, more predictable grip at every angle. So really amazing like gravel road or even a little bit more tarmac oriented type riding, I would say, than the 333 216. So those would be the two options.
And I might have misspoken a while ago. It might have been a 700 series tire that I got from you a few years ago. It was a bigger block tire that you recommended as a longer wearing alternative, and it sure is. And it's an amazing grip for a big block tire. It actually works really well on most single track. You got to really be pushing hard before that tire will let you down.
Yeah, I mean, Rally Raid racing, as you know, like the African Eco Race or Dakar, those types of environments, it's a wide variety of sand washes, rock road, obviously normal dirt, but you get a much wider variety of terrain. And so they needed a tire that would roll out really smooth at speed and maintain really predictable grip at every lean angle. Usually how I explain it is I would say that it provides you with 80% of available grip at all times. Whereas a 216 333, you'd get 100% of grip at most angles, but then it's a more of a square, as the tires kind of crown like this, there's a point where at the lean angle, you kind of get the edge, the drop off. Whereas the 723 Rally Raid is very rounded from edge to edge. So again, just very predictable, but not maximum grip. So I think though, for that tour and that environment, the 216 333 is the best option. Like you said, two sets. You guys have the infrastructure set up with those great places, Pocatello and I believe is it Les Schwab? Is that the other one?
There's a Les Schwab up in Salmon, that you.
Salmon Bird, his last name I think is Bird. So they're stocked up. So Josh Bird, So having those intervals, you really can't go wrong with the 216 333. With heavy duty tubes, like you said, Bridgestone is the ones that we personally recommend because they're all natural rubber. They're very high quality and they're a smaller overall size, so they fit in the tire perfectly. And you don't get any heat buildup or any folding or anything like that. So of all the different tubes that are out there, which there's, IRC makes great, a lot of people make great tubes. Bridgestone, I believe, makes the best tube on the planet. So,
Josh, if I'm mistaken, I've used all those. I think the IRC is not as heavy duty as the Bridgestone. The Bridgestone UHDs look to be like they're the heaviest duty of those tubes.
Yes, by far. And they actually make a standard heavy duty and the ultra heavy duty.
Ultra heavy duty, yeah.
We run the ultras just because weight isn't an issue for us in most environments. But the bikes these days and the power. And so what you get is that really thick, all natural rubber. Mm-hmm. And because it's technically what I would consider almost undersized for the tire, when it inflates to meet the inner surface of the tire, when you do compress the sidewall, it moves out of the way. So there's really no way to pinch flat a Bridgestone Ultra Heavy Duty. The only way to flatten one of those is to spin a valve stem or to put a nail or a spike or something through the tire and through the tube. Outside of that, I would find it almost impossible to pinch flat that particular product. So that's pretty important in the environment you're in.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I've been telling people that for years. We've been doing this for 17 years now. I've never had a flat in the Tour of Idaho. I've always run the Bridgestone Ultra Heavy Duty tubes. I put some slime in them just to be safe, but I don't know if I even need to do that. And one time I put a huge nail right through a tire on the last day of the tour. The slime sealed it up, and I was able to finish. There was air in the tire when I got to the end. And the other nice thing about the Goldentyres, it's not the heaviest duty carcass I've ever seen, but it's heavy duty enough that, you can limp along. If you've got those ultra heavy duty tubes and a couple of bead locks in there, I've run one out in the desert once with a hole as big as my thumb in it, and I rode 60 miles down sand washes in it, and it held up just fine. It didn't spin the tire off, and it worked.
Yeah, I think that speaks a little bit to Goldentyre. So you asked a little bit about the history of Goldentyre, what people need to know. Basically, I took over Goldentyre for North America in 2016. Prior to that, it was imported by a variety of other people. But once we assumed the West Coast role of distribution for the United States in 2016, and then following that in 2018, we took over all of North America, which is realistically just Canada and the United States. We don't do any business in Mexico yet. But basically, the product and the brand, and you asked about this, the source or the country of origin. And prior to 2016-17 era, we were making all products in South Korea, actually almost all products, but everything relevant was produced in South Korea.
That's where mine came from.
Yeah, so that's where we made the product. And in 2014, we started to have problems. In 2016, we had a lot of problems. And what we found is that we couldn't source the quality of rubber. So rubber comes in, every grade on the planet, and you can source whatever you want to make your tires, and all the tire manufacturers source whatever level for the different layers of the tire that they want to make, the different grades of rubber that they choose. Some of them are done out of, budget, and some of them are done for very specific durability reasons. Goldentyre really builds works tires. That's what the company was since about 2009, 2010. Actually, a little bit prior to that even. We really were just making products for all the hard enduros in Europe. That's what the brand started as, was building stuff for Graham Jarvis and Tadej Blazuzziak and all the hard enduro Red Bull races, if you will. And so that's where all the R&D was done. And the company was small enough and agile enough that that's all we produced was basically the finest quality product that we could make. And come 2016, when we were having problems sourcing the materials to continue that level of production, we made a strategic decision, or the owner did. His name's Marco, really nice guy. It's a very small company, by the way. It's only about 8 or 10 people in the whole world that are part of the Goldentyre family. And I speak with the owner quite frequently. And anyways, Marco made the strategic decision to move our production to China, which in the beginning we were a little bit nervous, as most companies are, moving production of something that's so well not only received, but is the quality level that we're able to produce. But the issues of production were killing us, honestly. So what we found was that China globally dominates the raw material market. So they've been very strategic over the last, 30 years of going around the world and acquiring raw material production, and through various ways, basically securing that. So we were able to actually own part of the production facility in China, move everything there, and send our production manager, Ido, and he actually, up until COVID, lives in China. He's not there right now because of the restriction. But at any rate, we actually had an Italian on the production floor managing production. And that was when the Gen 5 fatty front tire came out. And the Gen 5 was an upgrade and the transition to the new production facilities. And then since then, we've come out with the Gen 6s, which is what everyone's had for the last 2 to 3 years now. And I can tell you that being very nervous at Goldentyre, the product is actually better. It's actually more durable. We were able to lighten it up a little bit and still maintain the durability factor. And because I now deal directly with the manufacturing facility, the tires for North America are built on a purchase order, manufactured, put in a container, and shipped directly to me. And so prior to that, it was sent to Europe and it would sit in warehouses, and we would get weird problems with aged inventory and so on and so forth. So right now, it's a little bit of I don't think it's a stretch to say that we probably have the freshest tires getting to me in the world, which is really, really important as a tire. Like, the freshest rubber you can get out of manufacturing is the best grip that you can get. All the oils are still in the rubber. As you've seen with aged tires, they get more brown or they get gray looking. But when you get that nice, oily, fresh tire, the performance level is actually quite a bit higher than it will as it ages over time. Proper storage, things like that, you can get several years of storage in warehouses, but it's got to be done correctly. And that was the problem that I was facing early on when we took this on, was that we were just getting a variety of age of products. So long story short, stuff's made in China. However you feel about that, I understand. I've dealt with it. In my mind, it's actually a more efficient system to get the product here to the United States and Canada. And I think that we have better controls. And I think the materials that we're able to source, by having more of an open menu to be able to pick from, we're able to actually build a lighter and more durable tire. And that's really what it is about Goldentyre. They're super durable. Like you said, it's not the heaviest duty tire on the planet, but it's not meant to be. It's meant to provide a high level of performance and durability to get us through races or rides. So whatever the projected lifespan of the product is, like we talked about, that 800, 1200 mile rear, or maybe it's 12 to 15 on the fatty front of mixed use, it should provide tons of grip the entire lifespan of the knobs, because a lot of that comes from the carcass and the design work. So long-winded way of saying that, the brand's doing exceptionally well these days, and we're able to get things in a more timely fashion at a higher quality rate than we were before, which makes my job really easy.
Now, I want you guys to pay close attention to what he just said. I know that sometimes asking motorcycle guys to pay attention is a little bit tough, but you need to listen to what he just said. The way they get what they need, which is what you want, which is the best, lightest tire, is to go to the source of the materials. Dax, am I mistaken that China basically owns rubber production on this planet?
I mean, I don't have information all over the world, but for the most part, yes. In fact, they took over
it's China
South
and Indonesia.
America. Yeah, and they own most of the Indonesian supply channel. They own South America. They went in there and built ports. There was quite a bit of Pirelli production, I think it was, being done in South America, and they pretty much own that. So the reality of the world is that, like you said, we have to go to the source to get the products. And it's really not about where you source the products from. It's how they're made and what quality standards. Because to be honest with you, in an off-road tire world, if you look on every off-road tire and just go pick up any brand, it's written right on there where it comes from. You'd be hard pressed to find something that isn't either South Korea, Thailand, or China, or the PRC, in our case, public China. So that's kind of the reality of the world as far as rubber production and making really anything out of rubber products.
Look, it is what it is. And I get that people are upset at China and Russia and places like that. I am too. But, you can bite off your nose to spite your face sometime. My wife and I just bought an electric car. That electric car has got a lot of stuff in it that comes from places I don't like. But if I want to be driving around an electric car, it is what it is. And sometimes you just have to accept that. I don't think there's anything wrong with thinking about where the stuff that you buy comes from. But in this case, you've just heard someone give a completely rational explanation for why they do what they do. And it satisfies me, and I think it ought to satisfy most reasonable people. So I hope we can put that behind us. It is what it is. Plus, even if you buy Ford cars, which I'm buying, they're parts sourced from all over the world. If you buy any electronics, those parts come from all over the world. Virtually all of that stuff has huge components made in China. Is that great? I don't know if it is or not, but it's the world that we live in. It's just it. And so these guys are in a bind.
I would add to that too. I think for me, being in the power sports industry for a long time, 25 years of brick and mortar parts counter sales, I've done a lot of things. I ride a motorcycle to enjoy myself, right? And I buy these bikes, or I buy products for my motorcycles, and I may consider if I had options where it's sourced from, but I ride to enjoy it. And so I don't get caught up in it too much. You know what I mean? At 45 years old, I've been around a little while, and it's really easy to get caught up in the mix, but I wouldn't make any excuses either. If we weren't making a good quality product where we're making our products today, I'd be the first one to tell you that this brand would have been dead a long time ago, because it's not big enough to sustain poor product, right? Like, I think the 723R, the 333, and I actually had a 333 gummy design, working with the owner Marco and my production manager Ito. And so we took the standard 333 110 118 and we used the 516X compound and a little bit of other stuff that we worked on. And it's actually just showed up here the other day, another round of them, and they're amazing single track tires. So when I asked to have them make me a US spec hard enduro gummy for single track, we made about 3 conversations back and forth. They produced it and it came out, and it's amazing. I'm actually really excited. We just got those in about 2 weeks ago again. And all the first 150 that we produced were tested throughout the Pacific Northwest. Wet, slick clay, Browns Camp, Tillamook Forest, a lot of that kind of area, which is local to where I am here, Vancouver, Washington, but also sent some to Hawaii, been all around. Anywhere you can find some really nasty, slick stuff, it was tested, and it's an amazing product. Good stiff sidewall so you can run a tube, and a gummy compound so that you can, gain grip in the wet wintertime. I think summertime, we don't really need it. We'll run the standard 333 everywhere, and it provides plenty of grip. But in the wintertime, going in fall, if you're putting a fresh tire on next fall, or you ride a really, really nasty technical single track, it's a really good option that we came up with too.
All right. Well, let's put that stuff behind us, country of origin stuff, and let's talk about something else that you guys make, and you do it very well. You all do bib moose technology, and I'm interested in your opinion, because that's a big controversy. There's fights all over our forums about bib moose, tubeless, and stuff like that, and I'm one of the old farts that's saying, look, for our particular application, better safe than sorry, ultra heavy-duty tubes, a little bit of slime in them, no need to worry, but there's always people that are curious about, well, why are you against bib moose? Why are you against tubeless and stuff like that? This is your life. This is your job. You ride a lot. Presumably you sell some of that stuff. I presume you've used all of it. For our particular application, what's your opinion about those technologies?
Yeah, so Goldentyre does produce moose products, obviously, but most of my race support guys in Baja, which is really kind of our test ground, as well as Jacob Augubright and the Western Harris Scrambles, they're using moose 100% for racing. And if you told me you were going to Baja on a 5-day trip with a bunch of buddies, or a 7-day trip, I'd say there's no way you're going south of the border without a moose in your bike. Like, you're crazy to go down there and do that. That being said, when you introduce tarmac or high-speed riding, that's where the moose becomes a little bit of a liability, because they don't like heat. So as far as running moose is concerned, if you're racing and paying huge money to go to a big off-road race, we're running them 100% of the time. If you're going south of the border and you're going on a Baja adventure, no question asked. They have a lot of thorns down there, those environments, just a lot of things that can puncture a tire or a tube, or a tubeless system just isn't going to work. And it's a liability because you're out in the middle of nowhere. Tour of Idaho, albeit it's remote, it's still in the States, there's some areas to pit. I think that what you said with heavy duty tubes is a no-brainer. That's what I would do. That's what I do the majority of the time, or any of my test guys for the most part in the Northwest are running Bridgestone ultra heavy duty tubes, or IRCs really. And then tubeless is interesting. So the tubeless technology, and I work a lot with the Nitro Moose tubeless company. Most of my race teams, including all my Baja race teams, run Nitro Moose inserts in the rear. We do run the Goldentyre in the front. We do source a few of them. We don't actually import the moose stuff this time, other than those fronts for very specific use in the desert. But the tubeless system is a mixed bag of reviews. So it's light, it allows you to run low pressure, and if you don't have areas or thorns or sharp rock where you're going to get punctures in the tire, it's a really good product. However, a couple of things. Running low tire pressure, extremely low tire pressure, is really bad for tires, especially our tires. It can be done. It's definitely compatible with our products. I don't usually recommend it too often. If you're a really light rider, or you're going to keep it in the 8 to 11 range, no problem. If you want to run tires super flat, that's where there's a lot of option with moose, soft mooses and things like that, because it puts a lot of pressure on the construction of the tire, generates a lot more sidewall heat, so on and so forth. So in addition to that, we just get a lot of flats with tubeless. Like, it's kind of annoying to go trail riding with folks, or a multi-day ride, if they're constantly having to plug patch it, which is totally easy to do. And it does stay on the rim very well if you do get a flat, because you do have that inner bladder pushing out on the beads all the way around. So you basically have a rim lock and 360-degree protection as far as the bead coming off of the rim. But for the most part, not a huge fan of that particular technology, just because it comes with flats a lot. And I don't particularly recommend running super low pressure. If low pressure is your thing, it's really the only way to go. It's super light, it's infinitely adjustable on PSI, and if you don't mind plugging the tires, that's fine. What you also find is other products besides ours, because a lot of our test riders and folks have run different tires over the years. And what they basically said is certain tires that are thicker, heavier duty, they'll run those at like 4 to 6 psi, and they'll get away with it with tubeless without punctures because the tire is so thick and heavy that it has a lot of puncture resistance. Totally fine if you like those other brands of tires and that's what you want to run with tubeless. Tubeless is a good system. I just think it has a more narrow use case versus traditional ultra heavy duty tubes. Pretty much indestructible unless you have thorns or nails or things like that, in which case the slime will usually, because that tube is so thick, there's enough material there for the slime to get in there and actually make it seal up. So yeah, I think of all the technologies, I'd pretty much recommend the Bridgestone tube or ultra heavy duty tube with some slime if you want. Slime can mess with balance a little bit. And actually something I wanted to mention too, one of the most important things with what you guys are doing on the tour is you need to balance your wheels. And it's really, really, really easy to do. And all you're trying to do is offset the weight of the rim lock. So you don't have to get real technical. You don't really need a balancing machine. Most rim locks weigh approximately 2.5 to 3.5 ounces, depending on which one you're running. And you basically just need to run 180 degrees off of that, some form of a weight. And they actually make, now they make really nice brass weights that slide over the spoke and have a set screw, and then centrifugal force will also keep it in position. And basically, you can buy them in a 1 ounce or a 1.5 ounce, so it makes it real simple. And a big rear rim lock would be 3, and the front would basically be 2. And you just want a 180 out, and you find that the tire wears better, the bike runs smoother, and it speeds over, let's say, 40 miles an hour, which we get quite often. It makes a giant difference, and a lot of people don't know that or realize that. It's pretty important. I realize when you get dirt on the wheel or mud, it throws it out, but on a normal conditions, when we're riding at speed, there's not much debris on the wheels, and you'll find that if you balance your stuff, you'll get better wear, and you also get a much smoother ride.
Yeah, I've been a big advocate of balancing tires for years. I think it makes sense. You're right when they get dirty, but normally when they're dirty, you're going at slower speeds where it doesn't matter anyway. But as soon as you hit a transfer section and you're hauling booty, balancing those tires has a huge impact on wear, I think. I want to ask you one more thing before we get into some questions here. You said something a minute ago that piqued my interest. I've been running my Goldentyres I usually run like 10.5 in the front and 10 at the rear for years with those ultra heavy duty tubes. That sounds like it's below your recommendation, but I've never had any trouble at those pressures. They work fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's a recommendation, right? So the tire is built, so all Golden tires are built around the concept of moose. So you got to understand that about our products. Our products were 100% developed to run moose all the time in Europe, in hard enduro. Pretty much everything they do over there in Europe is moose based, most people. So that is about 1 bar, right? So approximately 13 PSI. So the standard that I always tell everybody to go with is 14 front and rear to start. Now that's usually, no one ends up there. I personally ride about there on my bikes. It's kind of the feel that I like. I don't like the tire to move around underneath me. I want a firmer feel to the tire. The grip is there, but people will run anywhere from, I would suggest on a rear 8 to 12, fronts. I don't feel comfortable at all personally riding less than 10 PSI in the front. I don't think the bike handles correctly. And I think that you find a lot of people cheating air pressure they want grip, but what they actually do is they lose stability in the bike. And so you actually get a more inconsistent ride. I challenge most people. A lot of people call me and have problems. It's like, hey, I'm struggling with this feel or whatever. And I say, I want you to run 14 front and rear. And they go, I can't. I run 8 to 10. I'm like, I just want you to go out tomorrow in the same place, go 14 front and rear, and give me an honest shot, and then call me back on Monday. And they always call back and they go, you know what? It felt a lot more stable. And then I adjusted it and I ended up at 13, 11 or something like that. And if you're riding on the road or you're running on some higher speed stuff, we'll run 15, 16 in the desert when we're out really ripping, because you don't really need that level of grip and that in the dirt feel. You can get away with being up on top of it a little bit. So I would say that the effective range on a front tire would be 10 to 14 in my opinion. You can do less if you want, but you better really get a feel for what you're doing. And then rear, I'd say like 11 to 15. I really don't see, or more, depending on if you're doing a lot of road use. We might even bump up to 16 to 18 if we're doing sustained riding to a riding area, say from a house, because they are DOT approved tire. And so we'll ride sometimes from the house up to the trails, and that might be a 30-minute ride up some highway or asphalt. So you might as well run a little higher, get there, you can drop it down. And then on the way home, we're usually tired, so we take it a little bit easier on the way home. So.
By the way, for those of you who are listening to this out here, I know that there's a broad range of experience in the listening audience. A pound of difference in pressure in your tire is huge.
In ours, especially.
It amazes me the number of people that will keep going back to the shop and say the suspension doesn't work, the suspension sucks, there's something wrong with this bike, try checking your tire pressures. That's the easiest thing in the world to do. I happen to have the luxury of I have my own private little skills track about a third of a mile long in the lower pasture below my barn. And I go out all the time and play with tire pressures and stuff and see what feels good, then play with the suspension a little bit. But I can feel a half a pound of difference in pressure in a tire just because I'm used to doing it. It's even worse on road bikes. On street bikes, if you can't feel the difference between a half a pound of pressure in a street bike, you probably should put the thing away and go ride something else. It's insane the amount of difference tire pressure can make. It's not like a car. It's something that you can feel immediately if you have any sensitivity at all.
Yeah, I mean, when I raced motocross in my younger years and ran Bridgestones, Dunlops, quite a variety of Michelin tires, half a pound was everything. It was 12 to 11 and a half was like a Mountain View or Washougal, for instance. It was absolutely hooked up or the thing not really being dialed in. And so that half a pound to a pound was absolutely critical. And then later in the day, again, you got to remember too, the stability of the sidewall of the tire is absolutely, it's critical that tire pressure is set for not only the conditions, but also the age of the tire. Our products tend to get softer as they get older, which sounds counterproductive, but it's the truth. It's the way the sidewall works. So as the tire loses its knob height and it's kind of getting wore out, you're still stretching mileage out of it. We find that we actually go up a pound or two on the tire as it wears in. So the point of that is just that tire pressure is absolutely critical. And it's something that you should test with quite a bit. Like you said, if you have time, it's pretty easy to carry the gear along with you, even on a ride, and just try it one day and give it an honest shot and try, 12 or try 11 or 2 pound increments. It's pretty easy to feel. It's really noticeable, but you can, if you have, enough feel on your bike, you can dial in a half pound and notice it.
All right, I got a couple of questions I want to get to here, and then we're going to turn Dax loose for tonight. First one's from Nick Wood. Does the 7XX series have a heavier duty carcass / sidewall?
Yes. It's because it's designed for a heavier class of motorcycle for rally raid.
Okay.
So.
And then Sean Smith. By the way, Sean is a major contributor to the forum and stuff. He's a super good dude. He's a very technical guy, and he's got a good question here. Dax, how far behind the 333 is the 723R for technical single track, do you think, in terms of grip on obstacles?
Cool. Quite a bit. But a good rider can ride 23, probably up to 85% of the terrain with no problem. So the 333 gives you that last 15 to 20% of grip that you wouldn't be able to get out of 723. But I would say that so one of the guys in Northwest that tests a lot for us, his name's Jake Mateer. He's a really good guy. I've been riding for a long time. He can ride the 723Rs on virtually any terrain, even in the wintertime on his 500 EXC or even the 300 if he was going to try to do some testing. But I would suggest that the 723R, remember, it's a Rally Raid tire. So if you know what Rally Raid is, most people don't. If you don't, check it out, Google it, look at what Dakar is, look at what the African Eco Race is and the terrain that they ride on, and know that that's what the tire's built for. So it's definitely not a single track piece versus the 333 absolutely dialed in for single track. And the 723R, the new version, is a tube type product. The old 723, the original one that's from a long time ago, which I think actually is the one you had, that was actually a tubeless rated product. So the new one is tube type. It's very important to remember that as well when fitting it on different bikes.
All right. Dax, thank you very much for agreeing to join us. Pardon me. I know that I sent you an email and then I left you hanging for a while. I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate your candor, and the information that you gave us was great tonight. I appreciate all that. I'm going to get back with you pretty soon. I'm going to send you a pickup truck load of money and have you hook me up with another 20 years worth of tires.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It's been a joy to speak with you. And also, if anybody ever has any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. Anything from Goldentyre West, social media link, or anything has my phone number, and I can answer any questions anybody at any time. So happy to do it.
Now, another thing, I want you guys to, I talk about all the people that we deal with. There's a reason why I like Goldentyre, which is the same reason I like Climb, Trail Tech, everybody else we deal with. Dax was willing to come on and talk to you guys and share his expertise. there's nobody from Dunlop that wants to talk to me, but Dax was more than willing to come on here and talk. And I think that means something to me, and it should mean something to you as well. There's all kinds of people in power sports world that you can buy stuff from. It's wonderful these days that you have so many options out there. But not everybody I've ever dealt with is the same. There's some people that want to deal with riders, and they're interested in your feedback and your concern, and they'll answer your questions. And there's other people that just frankly are not. They kind of sell it, and it is what it is. Goldentyre is a small company. They've always been very responsive. I've never went more than a day without a reply to an email from these guys. Thanks, Dax.
Thank you. You guys have a good night.
All right, take care. So there we go. All right, so what I want to do in the rest of the time we have here, and I want to try to get off tonight at 8, is I want to talk about day one. I want to get us into what we're doing on the penultimate day one this year. And I'm really excited about it. I've got up the map on another computer over here right now. So let's just talk about the changes in day one this year. The first thing is that what I'm going to do this year on every day, I thought about this a lot over the winter, and I went back and forth, and I had a team of about, 5 or 6 people that are really good friends of mine that I know will not just tell me what I want to hear, but will tell me the truth. And I said, look, the last 2 years, I really kind of want to make this thing special. These are some ideas I have. What's the best way to articulate this? And we went back and forth a lot, and I think we've come up with some ideas that are pretty good. One of the things, though, that we wanted to address, and I want to be, again, very careful about the way I talk about this because I don't want to disrespect anybody. But none of us ever anticipated, at least I never anticipated, the amount of pre-riding that we saw in the last couple of years. That's completely my fault. I should have. If I objected to it, which I really didn't at the time, I should have said something about it. But we had one team that pre-rode day one last year half a dozen times. We had teams out just riding these trails over and over and over again, trying to really get them worn in. And it reminded me of climbing days where guys would go out and wire routes. They'd rappel down and clean it and study all the moves and stuff. And nothing wrong with that. As long as you're honest about what you do. But it clearly, there's a difference between somebody that's ridden that trail, even once, but especially 6 times. You go out and you just start wiring these things, and you're trying to figure out a way that you can stay on the throttle the whole way, and you're trying to reduce the unknown basically to 0. That puts you in a completely different class than somebody that's here for the first time. We got a team coming over from Europe this year. I guarantee you they don't know the first thing about riding in Idaho. So, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think any of those guys have ever been here before. And if they have, they're not as familiar with the trails as somebody that's ridden one day 6 times. There were people out just riding things over and over and over. So we had actually encouraged some pre-riding. And some years we even offered bonus points for guys that went out and rode and cleared some trail. But last year it got to the point where, for the first time, I said, you got a guy like Jim Spooner that goes out. He's the first guy out. He's ridden some of the stuff up north, but he hasn't ridden anything else. That's a way different experience than people that followed him that were intimately familiar with a lot of the trails on the tour. So we're not going to forbid that. But I do think it's fair to sort of increase the complexity a little bit for people that have done a lot of pre-riding. So starting this year, if you have pre-ridden a day, there's going to be extra things that you're going to be required to do in that day. Some of these bonus sections that are bonuses for people that haven't ridden that day before, they will be mandatory for you. So on day one, we have 4 bonus sections on day one. Now, one of them is special because it's on the solo route, so it's only available for soloists. But that's fine because it does what a soloist would need who had been on the route before. So on day one, these 4 bonus sections are there. They are going to be, to some degree, mandatory for anybody that's ridden any or all of day one before. And you're going to have to ride a number of bonus sections that's equal to the size of your team. So if you decide to show up this year and pre-ride day one, nothing wrong with that. But in order to make it fair for people that don't have the opportunity for do that, we're going to make you ride a little bit more. So if you're a soloist and you're going to, and you decide you want to pre-ride day one, or you've ridden it before, you're coming back for the second time, you're going to have to ride one of those bonus sections. If you're a team of 2, you're going to have to ride 2 of them. And if you're a team of 3, you're going to have to ride 3 of them. Now, the 3 bonus sections were all on the tour last year. So that's not true of one of them. 3 of the 4 were on the tour last year. One of them is brand new. And I want to start with those first. The first one is down south, and it's that really steep, nasty climb up to, let me get it here. It's the peak. It's Old Baldy Peak. It's that nasty climb that's just a little bit south of Old Baldy Peak. Now, one thing that I did that those of you who are on the ball will note is that we used to sort of take an old Jeep road up to the top there. But every year I would get dozens of inquiries where people would look at the state motor vehicle use map and they would say, wait, that's indicated as a foot trail on the state motor vehicle use map. It's not. It's a Jeep road. It's perfectly legal to ride. I tried to get it changed. It's hard sometimes to communicate because the people that put together those maps get their data from the Forest Service or the BLM, whatever agency it is. And the Forest Service said, yeah, we'll look into it, and they never did. So what I did was I just routed everybody up the trail that everybody else uses, and that has the advantage of one less fence that you have to open and close. So even though it's a little bit longer, you don't have to get off your bike to open and close a fence, which was in kind of a weird, knackered place anyway. So you're going to go higher up the hill on kind of that main drag dirt road that goes up through there. You're going to go to a quad trail about another mile north than you used to. And you go up a little bit, and there's that first bonus section there. Now, in the last few years, everybody that's gone up there has regretted it because it gets really steep at the top. And what I told everybody is, look, if you look carefully, there's a sneak route that goes around, and it's actually not that bad if you find the sneak route. It's steep, but the regular way is kind of steep too. It's so worn in now, you won't get lost if you go up there. So I don't feel too bad about recommending that to people anymore. So if you've never been here before and you want an opportunity, I think that one I made worth a half a point. You want to pick up a half a point bonus, knock yourself out. I don't know if I would do it. I think I would just stick to the main route because it's easier, quicker, and day one's a long day. But it is available as a half a point bonus. However, if you have ridden day one before, if you're coming back from last year, we haven't decided how far back we're going to do this yet. I'll get into that a little bit later. I think certainly last year you're going to have to ride some bonus sections, but if it's been more than a few years, I think that we may pull that requirement back a little bit. We're still figuring all that out, and we'll work on that on a sort of an ad hoc basis, I think. We'll let everybody know going in what we expect you to do. But definitely, if you were last year, if you pre-ride this year, that's one that you're going to want to consider. You go a little bit farther north, and you'll notice that around Weston Peak up there, we've got a new bonus loop. Now, this bonus loop is really cool. It's got a bunch of single track on it, and the quad trail that's on it is really steep, and it's kind of hard. But it's a great loop, and it's been newly cut in. It's a wonderful loop. It's mostly single track. It's a ton of fun. The only thing is you have to reproduce a little bit of trail. You're riding back over yourself a little bit, but it's that really cool side hill on the west side of Weston Peak. You'll end up doing that twice if you decide to do that loop. So again, for people who have never been here before, if you want to ride that loop, which I would not recommend, by the way, because day one's a long day, you got to be in Pokey by midnight. But if you decided you wanted to, that one I think is worth a full point because it's a little bit longer. It'll take you a little while to get around there. It's fairly well burned in, but the single track on the south side can be a little bit difficult to find at the beginning. So the next one, and let me scroll over to my map here. I've got the map up on a different computer, so I can't share the screen with you. But if you go over to the other side of the highway, the next bonus section is on the solo route. And if you're a soloist, you haven't been here before, it's worth a half a point. It's okay. It's in better shape the last time I rode it than it was the first time I rode it. It's not too bad. It's actually kind of a cool trail, but again, if I didn't need it, I don't think I would do it. But if you're a soloist and you're coming back or you pre-ride, that would be the one I would do. It would be the easiest of all of them. So there's 1, 2, 3. The very last one is up here north of Lava Hot Springs. Let me scale this down a little. Here we go. Lava Hot Springs. Up north of Lava Hot Springs, another bonus loop is the first half of the challenge section. So you can ride down to Reed Canyon. You can ride along the east side of the Boundary Trail, ride up Reed Canyon, and just if you can make it up that first steep hill, there's basically 2 switchbacks in there that are problematic. If you can get up that hill, you can then ride down Bob Smith Canyon. And that'll count as a bonus section if you want to do it. That's a 1-pointer, if I'm not mistaken. So there's 2 half-point bonus sections on the first day, 2 1-points. But again, if you are a returning team or if you've pre-ridden day 1, you're going to have to do a number of these bonus sections equal to your team size, either 1, 2, or 3. If it's 1, that means you're a soloist. It's a no-brainer. Do the one that's short and easy down there just north of Malad. If you are a member of a 3-person team, you're going to have to do 3 of them, and that means that you have to do all 3 of the more difficult ones because the solo one is not on your route. If you're a member of a 2-person team, you don't have a lot of options. You could do the first 2 early in the morning, or you could do one of those 2, and then you could do Reed Canyon if you wanted to. I do the first 2. I wouldn't do Reed Canyon. I think that one is that one's a little gnarly. So other than that, I want to go over just to let's go over to the area down around Malad, the whole Elkhorn Range stuff. There's some great trails in that Elkhorn Range, and we don't have some of them cut out yet. There's some stuff that we could put on, but it's not cut out yet, and it needs some work. But the stuff that's on there is great. The thing that I really like about day 1 is there's some phenomenal riding right out of the gate. It's a lot of fun. And, you can't be really snotty about it because some of it's on quad trail, but it's still really good riding, and some of it's kind of challenging even though it's quad trail. A lot of it's beater, but some of it's pretty good. But some of the single track is just freaking fantastic. And the stuff down around Elkhorn is some of my favorite single track anywhere. In fact, when I go out riding, my favorite ride is to go park at the summit parking area and do a giant figure 8 around the Elkhorn Mountains. Do fence line first, then come back up over the west side, go up what is that? Kent's Canyon. Go up Kent's Canyon, then come back around that West Elkhorn Trail. It's a fantastic loop. It's wonderful. So what soloists are going to do this year is basically what they did last year. They're going to do that West Elkhorn Trail. They're going to go all the way around, except then instead of coming up to Elkhorn Peak via, what's the heck's the name of this canyon? Mill Canyon. Instead of coming up that, you're going to continue on around, and you get out of single track and you start on some quad trail, but it's pretty nice stuff. And you're going to go all the way around the Farmers Canyon and come up the Farmers Canyon Wakely Peak single track trail. And it's a really cool trail. You're going to like it a lot. I tried to talk some guys into doing that last year because I said it doesn't really take any longer, and it's a much more fun way to go up the Mill Canyon, but I had no takers. This year, that's the way you got to go. The 2-member teams, 2 and 3-member teams are going to go up Kent's Canyon just like you did last year. And then when you get down to Mill Canyon, the 3-member teams are going to go to the west. They're going to go up over Elkhorn Summit. You're going to go around, come up. Instead of taking the single track trail, you're going to take the quad trail that sort of parallels it to the south, come up and go over the Elkhorn Crest on the same route that the soloists take. And the people that are on 2-member teams are going to turn east, go down Mill Canyon, go to the Summit Campground parking area, and then just head up towards Fence Line Trail. So all three people meet. I think it's waypoint 43. I don't have that up right now, but then everybody does fence line. And when you get to the end of fence line, the routes diverge again. Soloists are not going to do what you did last year. What soloists are going to do is what everybody else did last year. You're going to ride down, take some farm roads over to Downey, over to Downetta, and then you're going to go up over the mountains into Lava Hot Spring the way everybody else did last year. What the 2 and 3 member teams are going to do is loop around back to the west. You're going to ride back down to the south, and then you're going to come up that Farmers Canyon Wakely Peak single track trail, which is really a fun trail. You're really going to like it. So for people on 3-person teams, there's a couple of miles in there that you're going to have to repeat again, but it's good stuff. It's a lot of fun, and I think you all will like it. You'll come back down. You'll end up at the summit parking area, and then you're just going to take the road out to Malad Summit, head down, and then everybody's going to meet up just a little bit to the west of Downey. And then that's where the routes converge, that everybody heads over. And let's see here. Everybody goes to Red Rocks. And then everybody subsequently heads up to Sedgwick Peak. So everybody goes over Sedgwick Peak this year. And you'll head down into Lava Hot Springs. I think that you should count on an extra hour. So if you rode it last year by any variation, I think this year you should add an hour to what it took you last year, because everybody's got to ride a little bit longer to get to Lava Hot Springs. Now, coming out of Lava, once again, there's another bonus section up there, which is do the first half of the challenge section. And now, a lot of people at this point are going to say, well, why not just do the whole challenge section? If you've ridden it, you know what the answer to that is. Reed Canyon, in my opinion, is not the hardest part of the challenge section. It's the hardest part for a lot of people because they just can't ride up that steep hill. But if you can ride up that hill, I mean, all you got to do is carry your speed, and, you know, you have to be able to pop your wheels over some tree roots and stuff. Jimmy did it with one hand holding a GoPro down near his foot peg, show off. But the hard part, as far as I'm concerned, starts after that. That trail over to Girl Scout camp's got some side hill exposure and some gnarl, and there's some rocks you got to be able to bounce over with big side hill exposure. It's for real. And you also have to go up Robber's Roost the hard way. So the normal route comes over Robber's Roost from the west to the east, which is the far and away the easiest way to do it. If you ride it from east to west, holy cow, that increases the difficulty quite a bit. So that challenge section is not over at the top of Reed Canyon. There's quite a bit more to do. What we used to have were guys that got to the end of the Girl Scout Camp Trail, and they'd hit the boundary trail, and they'd just skip Robber's Roost. They'd ride out. And that's the reason we specifically say you cannot do that. That's a DQ. If you decide that you're going to ride that challenge section, it's all or nothing. You either ride it, you bail out at the top of Reed, which is legal to do, or you turn around and ride back out. But you can't bail out at the bottom of Robber's Roost because you're avoiding, again, one of the difficult parts of it. And you're eliminating an awful lot of trail miles by doing that too. Once you get past that, nothing changed. I moved a few waypoints around to make things a little bit more clear. You get up to Income Pass. Probably one of my favorite single tracks in Idaho is right after Income Pass. You have that to look forward to. It's the one that goes down the South Fork of Inman Creek. That's a wonderful trail. Everybody that lives in Pocatello, that's the first trail you take your kid on in the woods when they first learn how to ride their little 50. And I'm taking my 5-year-old there as soon as the snow clears and we get it cut out. It's a wonderful single track trail. It's sort of a great way to kind of end the day because most of the technical difficulties are over at that point. You go into Income. You head into Black Rock. All the routes diverge in Black Rock. There's a 3-person, a 2-person, and a 1-person route. They all kind of converge up near the top, and then everybody takes the same route out to Chinese Peak and down to the flagpole. And the flagpole is the last waypoint of the day. I try to meet as many teams as I can at the flagpole. If I'm around and I can do it, you don't show up really late or you don't show up really early. I have kids, and they have things that they have to do. We got sports leagues and things like that. But I try to meet everybody at the flagpole as much as possible. So that's the route this year. I will go through it and look at questions in a minute, but let's just talk about logistics. We have arranged that you can stay in Malad. There's a place called the Hotel Malad. They love you guys. They're real big on the tour of Idaho. As far as I know, they've treated everybody very well that goes there. There's public parking in Malad, and every year I call the chamber, and they say, sure, yeah, those guys can park here. It's right next to the police station. I'm completely unaware of anybody that's ever had any trouble there. So the people in Malad are very welcoming to you tour riders. You can park in their city parking lot, their municipal lot, and they ask you to park in a lower lot, which is a little farther from the courthouse, but there's plenty of room there. Hotel Malad's a great place. I recommend that you get down there plenty early the day before. You should plan on arriving in Malad pretty early the day before you set out. And every year we get people that drive straight from wherever they're at. They end up at the trailhead at 4 a.m, sleep for 15 minutes or something, get on their bikes and take off. That's not what you want to do. Get to Malad the night before, have yourself a nice meal, talk to those people. They'll treat you right. It's a great place to stay, and it's kind of part of the tour experience, too. That Hotel Malad's a real historic place. You'll dig the heck out of it. But you do want to be up early that first trail morning. So make darn sure you get an early start. I would be rolling out of Malad at no later than 4 a.m. It's a pretty easy drone down paved roads to where you cross over I-15 down there. There's 24-hour gas pumps at that exit, so you can get gas really close to where the actual dirt starts. You go about a mile south of that fuel stop, and there is a quad trail on the left. You just head up that quad trail, and you're off to the races. You got to do a little out and back from where you hit that quad trail. You got to jaunt down to the south about 3/4 of a mile, and that's where the actual Tour of Idaho sign is, which Shane Smith and his friends put up years ago, and that's where the whole thing starts. So I would make sure that I was there no later than 6 in the morning. You're really pushing it if you get there at 6. Most people are there at about 5 o'clock. That time of year, the sun's coming up. You can start seeing around 5 in the morning pretty easily. If you're there early in July, the sun's up at 4:30 in the morning. But most people doing the tour start in late July, early August. And so it's around 5:30 in the morning when it starts getting light. First few miles are easy. Mixture of single track, quad trail. You cross the paved highway. I think it's 36. And that's where the fun starts, when you start that big climb up towards Baldy Peak. You go thousands and thousands and thousands of feet, and the number of people that have smoked clutches in there and boiled all the fluid out of their radiators, the stuff alleged, you got to just be on it. If you do the standard route, the advantage of that is the visibility is pretty good. You can always see where you're going, and you can kind of line yourself up for those steep sections. If you do the bonus section, you kind of come into one of the steepest sections from the side, and my recommendation would be that you ride back down to the saddle. You're going to come in midway up a steep section. My recommendation, if you do that, would be ride back down to the saddle, which you'll see down below you to the left, and turn around and just ride up there. And you can get a good running start at it, and if you do it that way, it's not that much trouble. The second bonus section is really cool. It's just time. It's going to take you probably a half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour to do it. So it's time. That's the only thing, but it's fun riding, and it's not at all difficult. The third bonus section is only available to soloists. Once again, there's no difficulty in there. It's just the time. And the fourth one is that one will absolutely keep you on your toes. Getting to the top of Reed Canyon, for most people, is going to be a push, pull, and tug kind of a thing. And some people might even deploy their rescue kit. So that's it for day one. I'm going to look. A lot of questions I'm seeing are answered if you just read the route description. Let me see if I see anything in here. Hello to everybody, by the way. I didn't have time tonight to go greet everybody, but I see a lot of the usual suspects in here. Ralph and Sean, Scott, David, Robert, Al, Jeff. Always Jeff. Got busy today, buddy, but I'll get a hold of you sometime in the next couple of days. All right, looks like that's about it. All right, well, I'm going to sign off then. It's 8 o'clock, and there's still daylight outside, and I'm going to go back out and play ball with my kids. So we'll do this again next week. I may have another guest on next week, but we'll be in a position to talk about at least day 2 and maybe even the parts of day 3 that I'm going to let you know about before you show up. Once again, this year I'm not giving out all of the route unless you make it through the first day. So the first day, day 1A, the day you do the big loop outside of Pocatello, I'm going to give all that away. But then the first part of day 3 will get you most of the way to Arco, except for the mystery section out by Big Southern Butte. But after that, I'm not telling you where you're going until you get to Arco. If you make it to Arco, you will be sent a series of trail directions and a crude map. This is where you're going to go, where you're going to go. I'm not going to tell you anybody where they're going to be spending the night till you get there. It's a nice place, though. You'll like it. And it's the same for the day after that. I will tell you you're going to end up in Mackey, so you can make that reservation if you want. But I'm not telling you where you're going from the mystery location to get to Mackey. And then we're going to do the same thing way up north. Some of the stuff, Jim and Andrew have been putting together some stuff for me, and we're going to do, I think it's the new day 12. There'll be a lot of mystery route on day 12, too. If you make it to Superior or St. Regis that night, we'll send you the directions. This is what you're going to do the next day. I just think that adds another layer of complexity to it. And I don't know about you, but I think it's awesome not even knowing where you're going to go the next day. But I can guarantee you that these days where we're not telling you where you're going, it will burn your eyes out. You're going to be going, oh, my gosh. I can't believe I'm riding here. They're some of the best trails I've ever ridden in my life. You guys are going to dig the heck out of it. And the fact that, you're going to have to do some nav on the fly, I think just ups the adventure level, and I don't think it's going to stress most of you very much at all. It'll be great. Once again, you've wasted a perfectly good hour of your life. You could have been doing anything else with a knucklehead like me. I have no idea why you all do that, but I appreciate the fact that you do. Just thank our guest again, Dax Simonelli, who's still out there, and buy Goldentyres. They're the best. See you all next week. Cheers.